Michigan gets a comfortable win in the end, 83-66 over the Eastern Michigan Eagles. Last year, a much dicier game with Amani Bates in the team in green from Ypsilanti. This year, Eastern's best player, Tyson Acuff, goes 0 for 7 from 3. He took 27 shot attempts in this game to get 24 points. I know you love that.
Love it.
Michigan looked better, I would say. I don't think we saw anything we haven't seen, except their head coach being their head coach. That's the first time we've seen that this season. Juwan Howard's back. John Sanderson's not in the building. Juwan Howard was back as the head coach thanks to a Friday night news drop. Great job, Michigan PR department. I listened to all the post-game press conference stuff. There's really nothing notable. Nobody will say if they expect John Sanderson back or not. And Juwan mostly just played everything cool, didn't really say much. So, what do you make of this? Was this a good win for Michigan? Does this feel like hey, the train's back on the tracks or no?
I wouldn't say the train's back on the track. I will say it's a good win though. Like this is Eastern Michigan is a bad basketball team, and they came out and handled business. So I will always give the benefit of the doubt and credit to a team that, despite what's going on in the season, when a bad basketball team comes into their house, they handle business and they win the basketball game. Um, Another thing that I wanted to point out is that we have come on here the last couple of Michigan recaps and talked about being a little bit reluctant to give Terrace Reed credit for taking the turn, and maybe turning the corner. Now he has the Iowa game behind us, but now he has this game where he had another good game, in my opinion, under his belt. Has Terrace taken a turn, you think, for the season? Because if he has taken a turn, I do think that means a lot for Michigan moving forward. And I didn't know if that turn was going to come because when the starting lineups came out for this game, Will Cheddar gets to start over Terrace Reed, which we brought up that might happen in the past couple of previews and recaps we did because Cheddar has been playing such great basketball, but Terrace Reed ends up out-minuting him in this game, pours in 13 points, 8 rebounds. I thought he didn't look out of place on the defensive end of the floor, in my opinion. So if I'd had to pick one thing that I'm feeling good about, it's that Terrace Reed seems to might have turned a page on what he's done early in the season because I think he's put together a couple games now.
I don't know that I would say he's turned a corner until we see him play a front court with a pulse. The two good looking games were Iowa, who no, just no, and Eastern Michigan, who did have a 7-footer. But yeah, I'll say this: I don't know if this was Juwan's decision. I would assume it obviously is Juwan's decision. Like he's not. Well, you can never say with Juwan. This could have been the ball guy's decision for all I know. I don't know how he runs this program, but at this point, the head coach is back and he makes a splash immediately, removing the starting center and putting Will Cheddar in the game. That was interesting to me, to say the least. I like the results. I hate the move. I like the results. I think you saw Cheddar and Terrace Reed much better on the boards than we've seen either of them this year. Like there were games where Cheddar didn't pull a rebound down, and he had 5 defensive rebounds in this game, 6 total. Terrace Reed, 8 rebounds off the bench. Reed still got the more minutes, like you said. If you heard the post game, it sounds like this is not a long-term switch. It sounds like they were claiming this was matchup dependent. Maybe they wanted to make the 7-footer guard the perimeter a little bit, and that's why Will Cheddar was out there. So I don't know. I'm willing to wait and see. Terrace Reed looks significantly better. Like regardless of competition level, he looks like he just is in the right spots now, and he is showing more offensively than he did in their first 9 games. It has me excited because that's the player we thought we were getting from day one. Like he hasn't done anything spectacular, but a double figure scorer guy that can get you 8 rebounds and looks really good defensively is kind of what I thought we were getting, and I don't know why it took so long. What does have me optimistic on Michigan, man, and I don't know if this is just the fan talking or not. You can tell me I'm just completely wrong if you want to. I'll believe you. But I think like this team's roster I actually kind of like. And I don't know what to make of Juwan anymore. I don't know what to make of his situation. But I do know this. I do know that like I want to see what this team looks like with him coaching. Like I want to see what they look like with a head coach. I just do. We haven't seen it. The Hart thing was scary, and then he's come back and made his own mess for 2 weeks. Like he's lucky straight up that he's even getting this opportunity. But Olivier Kamwa transferred here to play for Juwan Howard, and so that Juwan Howard could put him in the NBA. Namari Burnett transferred here to play for Juwan Howard because Juwan Howard could get something out of him that Nate Oates and Chris Beard didn't. This is supposed to be his team, and it hasn't been his team. And they looked really good for 3 weeks, and then they looked really bad for 3 weeks, and then a shitstorm hit the program. At least in this game for 40 minutes, it was like, this is Juwan Howard coaching his roster. And I'm willing to see what that looks like for the rest of the season because also, like, Jalen Llewellyn's back and he gave them good minutes off the bench in this game. I think that matters. They had no guard depth when they were in Atlantis. Trey Jackson is still a disaster, but if he's your eighth guy, you can live with that. I love the front court right now. Like, I think between Cheddar, Kamwa, and Terrace Reed, you can do a lot of different things to cause teams problems. Like, if you have Cheddar and Kamwa in together, traditional bigs are going to have problems guarding that team out to the 3-point line. And if you need Terrace Reed, you can put him there. So the players themselves, I'm high on. I think this top 8 is a team that can win games in the Big Ten. And now Juwan Howard has all the eyes on him again. He just has to go do it. And I thought this was a first good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I will actually agree with you there. When I look at this roster just on paper, there's so much you can do with it too, in my eyes. Like Olivia Nkamhoua quietly, and I say quietly only because of what's going on in Michigan, their record as a team, I don't feel like it's talked about enough. But just him, to me, in my opinion, he's playing at a first team all Big Ten level. Like, I think, like, you look at that guy who's going to be the 5th guy on that first team all Big Ten, and I think he seriously I think you seriously need to consider him for that spot, just with what he does. I mean, granted, Eastern Michigan, but, like, every game you look at with Olivia Nkamhoua, you're going to get at minimum 13 points and at minimum 5 rebounds. And that's like a bad game for him. Other games, you're getting 17, you're getting 18 and 10. I just think he's been consistent, despite, you might press back on that as far as him, like, not stepping out at the end of the games or coming up at the end of the games with him and Doug. But Olivia Nkamhoua was having a great season, and this team's versatile in my eyes. I think they have a lot of guys that could do different things, and it's about a coach and a system that can actually pull the right strings, and guys are fun on this basketball team. But the main question I want to come to you with this recap, are there any concerns at all with your sweet 5'2" point guard whatsoever? I feel like he's been just, take this the way you want to. I feel like he's just been going through the motions lately. And Doug going through the motions isn't that bad. Doug going through the motions, he goes through the motions and he gets you in this game 11-4. He goes through the motions of the Iowa game. Still ends up like 13-7 or whatever he had. But he's going through the motions, in my opinion. And I would like to kind of hear where you stand on that.
He is 100% going through the motions. I'm a Doug guy. I'm always going to defend my guy. I'm always going to believe in my guy more than that. Like, there's not going to be a point this season where I'm like off the Doug McDaniel believer train. I think there's a world where he ends up the best point guard in the country before he's done playing college basketball. He's not close to that yet, despite me believing he was close to that. No, November 13th, when 3 of his first 4 games of the season, he started with 20 plus points. Like, you have to remember that really through even the Oregon game when they were having losses, like, Doug looked like the best score first point guard in the sport. Like, we talk about a lot of the other best point guards, like Tristan Newton can go get you 30. He's great. He does a lot. Braden Smith and Tyler Kolek are phenomenal guys, but just go get me a bucket. Like, what I saw from Doug in the first couple games looked better than anybody I've seen. The last 3 have not been that. Since the Oregon game, I mean, against Indiana, he was just horrendous. He was 3 for 14 from the floor. He was missing free throws. He looked gassed. And then I think after that Indiana game, he's been better, but he still hasn't been in control of the game. Like, he's been out there playing the game. Doug needs to control the game. He's good enough to control the game. And against Iowa, again, he had 0.0 assists in the first half. Immediately won Michigan the game in the second half. Like, he rattled off 9 points and 5 assists in like 5 minutes. Like, he had the entire game in his palms and was dominating it. Eastern Michigan, he got in foul trouble. That's something I think you would like to say with your best player. Like, you don't ever worry about that. You're not supposed to ever have a concern that your point guard's going to take him out of a game. himself out of a game because of foul trouble. With that said, like I watched one of the best point guards in recent college basketball memory, Trey Burke, get us to a national championship game and get in foul trouble. So like it's something that happens. I thought Doug didn't need to make some of the mistakes he made in this game that led there. And I trust all that he's capable of doing on a basketball floor. I don't trust that he's ready to control a game every time he steps on the floor right now. And that's where he needs to get. Like, if Doug gets to that point before this season ends, then you're taking this roster totally serious. Like, nobody, I'll straight up say it. Nobody wants to see a team with Olivier Comwa playing how he is now and Doug McDaniel on his A game. You don't want to see that team with Terrence Williams shooting the way he's been shooting, with the options in the front court you have, with Cheddar playing how he is, and when Amari Burnett is your fifth guy. That's a team that can cause problems for anyone, even the best teams in the country. But it requires Doug to be on his A game, and we're now going on a week and a half that he hasn't been.
Right. And when I say that, I'm not even like, I hate to play the whole like I'm pulling for the kid or like I expect better than him, like that type of talk. But it's because Doug shouldn't float. Doug is too special to float. And it's disappointing to see him float. And, you know, if you want to talk about Michigan's ceiling, whatever it is, like you talk about, like if Michigan somehow makes a run and gets in a tournament or does whatever they do in the tournament, it might be dependent on when Doug realizes what he could be. Because if you ask me right now, does Doug McDaniel end up being one of the better point guards in the country by the time he leaves Michigan? I say yes, 100%. And I think everyone else would say yes, 100% too. But he's a sophomore right now, and it could come quicker than some might think, but it's kind of dependent on when he, I guess, mentally maybe gets in that mode. I really don't know what it is, but it's also not mentally, because I think when Doug steps on the floor, he has like some shit to him and a G about him that I think makes him good. So he shouldn't be a type of player that floats. But I really don't know what it is. But I do agree with you to the point that, let's say Doug realizes that by start of Big Ten play, you don't want to see this team.
Yeah.
We talked about it in the preseason. Like, we're picking like three players, like big three versus big three, or whatever you want to do, two players versus two players. Don't want it to be those two. I don't want to see Olivier and Doug high level. I think that could get it done versus a lot of teams.
And I think it's promising on paper that like the roster itself looks significantly better to me with Llewellyn just back. Like if Llewellyn's capable of playing 15 minutes off the bench as a guard, I think that helps this team a ton, because I think we've seen Amari Burnett stretched a little thin here. Like you don't want Amari Burnett playing 38 minutes in a game. You want to play in like 30 really good minutes. And I think even to an extent, like too much has been asked of Doug, and maybe Doug's adjusting to that a little. I obviously want Doug on the floor at all times, but like if he can play 30 to 32 minutes instead of 39 minutes right now, that feels a lot better to me. So I like the Llewellyn's back. I like that Terrace Reed is turning the corner. Like it does feel like things are kind of coming together for this team. Two rapid fire questions for me. Michigan has a top what roster in the Big Ten? Just roster, nothing else. The same coach is coaching every team in the Big Ten. What's their roster?
I'll take Purdue, take Illinois, Michigan. Top 5.
I think that's where I'm at. I'd be open to hearing top 4. Maybe I'm crazy there.
I go back and forth. Like, you have Purdue, you have Illinois. I personally have Michigan State's roster ahead of theirs.
I think the others that I would say for sure are in consideration would be Michigan State and Ohio State. Like
that's what I have.
I'm taking Michigan's roster over Wisconsin's.
That's where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we obviously got to see it come to fruition, but all right, final question. Maybe this isn't rapid fire for me, but do you still believe that Juwan Howard can coach a team that is good in college basketball?
Do, yeah.
You do?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a lot less hesitation from you than I thought.
I do. I'm a Juwan Howard believer. You know that.
So, like, as long as he's in the room and there's not an issue behind the scenes, if he's in the room with a roster this good, you believe that Juwan Howard can lead this team to good things?
I do, because I know you wanted this to be rapid fire, but here's where I'm coming from. It like, we look at college basketball players sometimes and we're like, that's a good player, but they're in a bad situation. They don't have the things around them to succeed. I think Juwan falls victim to that sometimes. And I'm not saying it's all on that, but sometimes you need a little boost. You need to be put in the best situation to succeed. And that's not just on the court, it's also coaching wise as well. And does he bring some of that on himself? Yeah, but also it's like a product of the environment and the admissions and everything else that's around him that may lead to these type of issues. So yes, like I said that with no hesitation because I mean it with no hesitation. I actually do believe that Juwan can be the coach of a good basketball team.
I'm about to talk myself into Michigan. Be prepared.
No, don't let me do it because I know you don't.
Just know, I want everyone that's listening and watching this. I want you to be prepared for the next 30 seconds. Be prepared. What I'm about to do might be blind optimism from a fan.
Oh,
I'm
we're
about to.
back.
I'm about.
We're so back.
I'm about to talk myself into Michigan. Here's why. Juwan Howard's issue has never been coaching a talented team that like has good parts. Like yes, last year he did not coach a talented team well. I will go to my grave saying that last year's team had more roster issues than they did coaching issues. Like Juwan failed last season when he committed to Terrence Williams needing to be a 30-minute guy at the four. And that happened because he thought Terrence Shannon was going to be at the four. And then Terrence Shannon, that was a roster building issue that led him to a roster that had massive holes. And then the point guard he brought in that he evaluated, Jalen Llewellyn, was horrible and tore his ACL. That was last year's season. And Doug wasn't ready, but Doug wasn't supposed to be ready. Yes, they should have been better than they were. I'm not here to rehash it. I don't think Juwan Howard's issue has ever been coaching teams that are like kind of the pieces make sense. Like this year's team, the pieces kind of make sense, Cart. And the biggest reason why is because Terrence Williams has been good. Terrence Williams went from a total liability to a good basketball player, like a really good basketball player. Like there are not a lot of guys in the country that shoot 40% from three, make 2 threes every single game on the type of attempts he takes. And the shot is for real. He deserves a bunch of credit for that. And they have depth in the front court, and they have a really good point guard, and they have a guy you think should be all Big Ten. Like this team makes way more sense on paper than the last 200 Dickinson teams. And
Yeah.
Juwan's issue has not ever been coaching when his team makes sense. His issues have been roster building. His issues have been prioritizing guys that can't get into school. His issues have been off the court. His issues have been physical altercations. I have a bunch of issues with Juwan Howard that are real. But if the guy's just coaching a team that's pretty complete as a roster, he don't have no problems. He's won a lot of games like that. And I think that's where this team is at right now. I'm starting to see it. Like, we need to make sure somebody drives him to and from his house every game. Like, we need to still have like handcuffs on him to make sure nothing bad happens. But if he just can get to every game where the game starts and it's 40 minutes, like, I kind of trust him with this team.
That's on Jace too, by the way.
So Jace needs to step up as enforcer.
Yeah, like you're the son on the team. Like you got to step up right there.
Well, Jace was out getting a second opinion in California on his misdiagnosis of his injury. So
I'm saying you as a son, you got to keep pops in check. Like my pops today at the White Elephant party went to the food table too soon. I was like, Pops, it's not time for that. White Santa's coming first. And he said, all right, you're right.
I did receive a video of you sitting on Santa's lap. Do you want to address that?
Absolutely not.
Did it happen?
Yeah, it did, but only because the kids wanted it.
Oh, so this was a show for the kids.
Yeah.
This was a people pleaser.
Yeah, like like my little cousins were like, Carter, sit on Santa's lap. I'm like, yeah, I got you, Henry.
You didn't enjoy anything about being on White Santa's lap?
No, I didn't, especially because I knew who Santa was.
Do you think Santa enjoyed having you on his lap?
No, he let me know he didn't.
I mean, you are like a large man.
I definitely got a lot of mass to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ask him for anything? Do you have a Christmas wish for Santa?
I told him to pray for my ops. Make sure you don't give him coal. because
I'm
I'm going to serve
normally
them cold.
I feel like I'm normally pretty good at not breaking with you, and that one got me.
I'm just saying, like I didn't go up there like, hey, go to my ops house and give them coal. No, go give them everything they wanted. Put them on the nice list. I want them to be at their best because I'm coming.
Do you refer to Santa as White Santa always?
Yeah.
Is there a Black Santa?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference?
I mean, one's white and one's black.
That's it?
Yeah.
So
Like there's
they're
a white
just
Santa.
so like, but why even go with the? Why can't they all be Santa? All this isn't all Santas matter.
No, we're not. We are not an all Santas matter podcast.
Okay, all right. Uh, okay. Nice Michigan recap. Happy holidays, everybody. We got a bunch of other recaps on the channel. Go subscribe to it so you don't miss more Santa dialogues.